It's time for a featured review. And for that, we're going to another Amazon Prime movie that just came out this weekend. Like I said, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Foxx, who's the main attraction here. This movie is called The Burial. And for this, we are going to go to Zach first. Zach,
Oh boy.
tell us
Okay.
all about The Burial. Oh,
Wasn't
he's
wasn't
geared
ready
up
for that.
now.
Okay,
Well,
so
ready or not, here it comes. Go for it.
okay, the burial. Is it burial or burial? I've always called it burial, but I also pronounce February, not February. So I don't know. I'm not an expert at it, but I'm going to call it burial. Uh, it sounds kind of southern, maybe like Tommy Lee Jones. Anyway, this is a movie that is apparently based on a true story, and it takes place in the mid '90s in Mississippi. And the movie stars Tommy Lee Jones. The man has to be at least 80 at this point. I mean, he's like James Gardner in The Notebook, sort of like very, very old. And he plays a funeral home director who is undergoing some bankruptcy issues. The government is coming after him, just like they did Tom Cruise's first boss in The Firm. And so to fight against this looming bankruptcy, he agrees to sell off part of his business to this very arrogant, rich aristocrat businessman, played in the movie by Bill Camp, of course. How much has Bill Camp been doing? That guy's been working a lot lately.
He's in every movie.
And he's in every movie. I mean, it's the Bill Camp Award should be, any character in any movie. Anyway, so Bill Camp is, of course, he's like a silent movie villain. He's got his big dish, and he's, of course, going to screw over Tommy Lee Jones. So what does Tommy Lee Jones do? He goes to the biggest lawyer in the United States. No, not Johnny Cochran, but a person who models himself off Johnny Cochran, which is mentioned in the movie because it takes place in the mid-'90s. That character's name is Willie E. Gary, and he's played in the movie by Academy Award nominee Jamie Foxx. Oh, and winner. Actually, they both won Oscars, but not for this movie, I don't think. So Jamie Foxx is this larger-than-life lawyer. He actually, Tommy Lee Jones sees him on a TV show narrated by Robin Leach. And so you kind of think that the Jamie Foxx character doesn't really have a soul or a conscience, and it doesn't appear that way at the beginning, but gradually he kind of turns and he actually starts listening to Tommy Lee Jones and is kind of caught up in his convictions, and in part because they want to try the case in a black majority county in Mississippi, and so they feel as though Jamie Foxx's style may connect more with the mostly black jury. The other side of it counters, and they also get a black lawyer, and it's fascinating the way the movie kind of plays with race. There's a question that's directly asked to one of the characters: does this case have anything to do with race? And at first he says no, but of course the answer is kind of yes, and I think that's one of the sort of veiled messages of the movie. I was really entertained by this movie. First of all, I thought it was absolutely wonderful to see Jamie Foxx back again. I feel like he has not made a really great movie in a while, sadly. And I don't know.
Project Power. Come on now.
Yeah, I mean, Project Power, he was so great in. Really, I loved his voice acting in the Stray Dog movie. That's really high level stuff. But no, I mean, he's like really good in this movie. It's a role that's juicy. It's got a lot of pizzazz. He looks really great in his suits. He smiles a lot. He's got that persona down perfectly. And in fact, I think it's a low-key kind of high war role. I couldn't really think of a lot of actors that I would have rather seen in that role. And I think Tommy Lee Jones is Tommy Lee Jones. I mean, at this point, he's kind of like, I don't know what Clint Eastwood was maybe 10 years ago, just kind of old and grumpy. The movie has a lot of interesting points. For one thing, you understand that the reason that they're going to court is because of sort of this loophole that this corporation, this soulless corporation, wants to exploit in order to further bankrupt Tommy Lee Jones. I think the case is fascinating. I think the environment of the courtroom is fascinating because there is this element of race that plays into a large part of the movie. Tommy Lee Jones' original lawyer in this movie is played by Alan Ruck. I guess he got off the bus in Speed. He was done being a tourist. It's nice to see him again. I haven't seen him in a long time either.
Let my Cameron go.
It's very, very clear that he plays a character who is steeped in the white, aristocracy in the South, and there's a good exchange in the courtroom where he kind of says too much about his family history. I kind of thought this movie was a actually successful mixture of Green Book and My Cousin Vinny. I also thought there was a little bit of Just Mercy and Aaron Brockovich. Aaron Brockovich, particularly in the way that the Jamie Foxx and Alan Ruck characters kind of clash over what it means to practice law, and they have very different styles. It's kind of like Albert Finney and Julia Roberts, I think, a little bit in Aaron Brockovich. There's a part where Jamie Foxx screams at a witness on the stand, "Sit your ass down!" And I'm thinking, this is a Samuel L. Jackson role too. He would have been amazing in this in 2003 if this was 20 years ago. The movie, like I said, it's interesting to think about it as a time capsule of the mid 90s, even though you don't really know the result of the movie because it's sort of an unknown story. And I think it's really fun. There was a line that I was reminded from the set of Batman Forever when Tommy Lee Jones apparently said to Jim Carrey, "I do not sanction this buffoonery." I imagine that's something he would maybe say to the Jamie Foxx lawyer in this movie. I was waiting for that line. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. Fun movie, 3 stars. I enjoyed it.
All right. Todd, why don't you go next?
Yeah, I like this movie more than Zach. I do agree. Jamie Foxx, he's on fire in this movie. He has the charisma and the cockiness that he just plays flawlessly. And I think if he is considered supporting, I think he is a contender for best supporting actor because I think he's that good. And yeah, it's kind of hard to replace what he brings to the movie. And I think Tommy Lee Jones is really good too. He gets best performance in 15 years or something. But what's most interesting is his relationship with the Jamie Foxx character because it's a bond that it can't really be explained. It's just so interesting because they have this friendship that's built out of like respect and empathy and genuine intrigue. Like you think that Jamie Foxx taking the job for his own interest, but then it develops into this like weird father-son relationship that they genuinely care about each other, which is not at all the way I expected. And it kind of, it's just interesting how they play that off. And especially there's one scene that takes place in the bathroom between the two that and then another one at the mother's house that just like really shows that it's a really cool dynamic that the director was able to bring to it. And Bill Camp is perfect as the corporate raider guy. He's slimy and just I mean I wouldn't replace him with anything. He should be in every movie. He kind of is. And Smollett, the other lawyer, she's dynamite as well. She's like has a couple of moments I was genuinely surprised by what she's doing. But my favorite part of the movie, honestly, is the assistants, like Dorian Missick as Reggie. Like he is awesome. He's like Willie's like right hand man, but also kind of like his hype man. Like when you first see him, like he's like repeating things that Willie's saying in like a different word, but it like totally the dynamic of that scene is awesome. He's like vital to the character. Alan Ruck is good too. I just think this movie is very deep diveable with all the great supporting characters. Like I love Willie's wife too, played by Amanda Warren. Like that was a character that could have gone a bunch of different ways, and she is actually really genuine. I think the movie is kind of brilliant. It doesn't reinvent anything because it doesn't have to. It's like a David versus Goliath story, and it has it plays with an immediacy that gets you lost in the courtroom scenes, and I just think it plays really well. It also has a lot of the same sensibilities as Dumb Money, where it's like the little guy taking on the evil rich people who are just doing their jobs, but it's like ruining people's lives basically. And the circumstances are varying, but it plays. I mean, it just has a lot of those same elements, and it also reminded me somewhat of Suits with like the lawyerly rivalry that they have, like when Willie and the other lawyer go out to have a drink together. Like that was totally a scene straight out of Suits. But it's a rousing crowd pleasing movie, and I think that has great performances. It has really emotional parts, and I mean it's just cool. It came out of nowhere, and I think it really could be a threat for some awards if enough people catch it on Prime, because I don't know what kind of release it actually got in theaters. I'm actually at 3.5 stars with this one.
All right, yeah, it's a thrice approved movie. I'm at 3 stars. This is how you do a pretty good crowd pleaser, easily accessible, just movie for the masses that has a message to it too. Like we see so many of those where it's like, oh, this is just it's so by the numbers. Like I was just talking about with A Million Miles Away, that it doesn't do anything original. It doesn't have anything. It's just too safe, and it's just out there to try and be a movie that anybody could watch, but no one will fully enjoy. That's not this movie at all. I think this movie does a lot of really cool stuff. You guys mentioned all all the great performances that are in it. Journey Smollett, I think, is amazing in this movie. My favorite was the friend of Tommy Lee Jones's son that what just became a lawyer. What was his name? Hal, played by Mamadou Ati, who we've seen in
Right.
Jurassic World Dominion. He was also the lead voice in Elemental, which I'd forgotten about.
Hmm.
Yeah, he's great, and you can tell he's probably the smartest man in any room that he's in. And even when he's in that room full of all the lawyers, it's a fun movie. It's a breezy 2 hour movie too. Like it just kind of flies by. Uh, I fully enjoyed it. I mean, it was I'm not I could go to 3.5, but I don't know. It felt like it was a little too cliche at moments, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun. I'm this conversation did not go where I thought it was going to go because I thought you guys were going to be like, no, it's too corny. There's no way this movie is any good, and but no, I'm pleasantly surprised that you guys liked it.
I didn't even know it was a true story until like the closing credits. So I was surprised by that. I was like, oh, this is like that's actually really cool. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know. My banner is of course the name of Willie's plane. It was a great plane, and he mentions it during court where he's like, oh, I could tell you about my plane. I know exactly what it cost. We're not talking about my plane. Like we're talking about your boat.
Well, mine is a shout out to another scene in this. It feels good.
Yeah, song on the plane.
On the plane, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like this movie too. I like courtroom dramas. I think it's a genre that, like Terry was saying, it's juicy, it's accessible. There's nothing in this movie that is over the top in terms of confusion, unlike the other court movie that we'll be talking about in a few minutes. But it's fun, and I actually one of my favorite characters in this movie is the judge because he overrules every single objection. He's like a let him play type ref. I think we need more of him in the Pac-12.
That's pretty
But
good.
yeah, he it's anything. Let's throw out character insults. I mean, he's great. I also think Tommy Lee Jones, borderline stickman, 13 kids in this movie. That's pretty impressive. That's like a detail that you expect to have some sort of payoff later in the movie because it's mentioned prominently twice and it never does. So I'm wondering if that was maybe a deleted scene element. The only reason I'm not higher on it is, well, two reasons. Number one, it's a little too long. And I think the movie, at a certain point, they're going to win the case. And that's at about the 145 minute. I'm like, there's 20 minutes left in this thing. Come on, let's get through it. Okay. And I think the last few scenes are probably, I like the last image of the movie, but the last 15 minutes is it's kind of like the last 30 minutes of Speed. You don't really need it. And then the other thing I was going to say is I think the movie makes the jury a little, I'm not going to say dumb, but simple-minded. I don't know. I wish, but I think that's the lawyer's perception of the jury. But I think there's a couple moments when the director, Maggie Betts, who otherwise I think does a great job in this movie, especially with the flow, but like she does that zoom in when there's a big revelation made in the court about a character's backstory. And that is like just a little bit too simplistic in terms of drawing inferences about the jury. But again, I
They
think
do
it's
that
also
exact
how
thing
the
in My
lawyers
Cousin
perceive.
Vinny a lot, though. So I mean,
Yeah,
that's how you
I
play
don't know.
with juries when you're talking about something that's a really like big case, I guess.
I think the simplistic view of the jury. The other thing to remember too is, like you were saying, this is set in the time of the O.J. Simpson trial, where there was so much talk about how impressionable the jury it can be, and how you can influence a jury with things that have nothing to do with the case. And yeah, so
That's
I
true.
think there's some validity to it.
That's true. I just wish Maggie Betts had maybe, I don't know how she could have done it, but I wish that somehow they had put in a scene that could have shown that the jury was a little bit more sophisticated than what the lawyers said about them. Like, I don't know how to do that, but I think it, that would have maybe made it nice. And then, the other thing I wrote down, I just like characters that are expert at their craft, but they do it like unconventionally. Like Jamie Foxx, there's no one like him. He refers to himself in third person. He says this is. I've never heard another lawyer say this, but he actually has the line, "This is not a Willie Gary case," and the reason he rejects it is because $6 million is not enough money. I mean, that's great. Like, I love that sort of stuff, and he can back it up. But yeah, he's an excellent lawyer, and I think the dynamic between him and Journey Smollett is very good too. Like, there really isn't anything in this movie I didn't really enjoy, and it doesn't patronize you in the way that Green Book does.
Well, the Willie character. I mean, obviously, like Jamie Foxx would play Willie T. Ribbs, of course, because they're similar.
Yeah.
But Willie, he like literally has his own congregation, and he does that for his own ego. It's like he loves being the center of attention, and I love that about the character so much. Like, and he won't take the case because it's something that he feels like is beneath him or whatever, and he needs those wins. And I don't know, I it's a fascinating character. I don't think I've ever seen a character like that in a movie before.
And he eventually takes it because Hal plays to his ego and knows what it takes, even though he's fresh on the scene and is still learning the ropes.
Yeah, and I think a lesser movie would have made the Jamie Foxx character one-dimensional, like a caricature. But we learn more about him, and we learn that not only does he have integrity, but he's got a perspective that is built on experience in life and like his growing up, his coming of age. So I like that, and I really like the way the movie ends. I think a weaker movie would have made it about Tommy Lee Jones and Jamie Foxx, being bros now. No, this is not Green Book. I mean, this is a movie I think has loftier ambitions, so I appreciate that.
I think it'd be interesting if Jamie Foxx did get an Oscar nomination for this. He hasn't had one since his double nomination and win in 2004. He had the health scare earlier this year where, I mean, some people were wondering if he was still alive for a few weeks there. And he's quietly had a big year. Like, Zach, you said, I can't remember the last time he was in a good movie. This was his fourth movie of this year because he was in Strays. He was in a movie called God is a Bullet. And then the big one was the Netflix movie they cloned Tyrone, which I didn't see. Todd, I think you saw it.
Yeah,
but there was a lot of buzz around that one too.
Well, he was obviously Soul. Like, that was not that that long ago. Like, he's been
Spider-Man No Way Home. He was in another Netflix movie last year, Day Shift, which a lot of people saw. I didn't see it, but it was kind of a big movie on Netflix. So he's been putting in the work, and he's been doing his thing. Not to mention, of course, the BetMGM commercials.
So you make a good point. I mean, it is not a foregone conclusion that Taylor Swift is the media personality of 2023. I mean, Jamie Foxx is in contention. Maybe I like him as like a plus 240 underdog.
There's a narrative. There is a narrative there, and for so much of it, and if Jamie Lee Curtis winning last year told us anything, that the narrative is almost more important than the performance when it comes to the Oscars nowadays.
Well, with that it was more important for sure.
Yeah.
I almost don't want this movie to get nominated for Oscars. I think it's a good movie. Just let it be. We don't need to have a cultural discourse around it. It's fine. Just let it be. Let's not turn it into the Green Book. It's a
just
good
give
movie.
it like a sole supporting actor nomination. That's all I'm asking for. If
Just Mercy
Robert
almost
Duvall,
did
that. Just Mercy, yeah, he almost got it for Just Mercy. But
okay, but then they would give it to Tommy Lee Jones though, and that would be a mistake, right? I mean, wouldn't
Tommy Lee Jones is the lead though. Like, I think Jamie Foxx would probably go supporting if this was getting a push.
But you're right, Todd. Yeah, a couple of years ago, he almost got an Oscar nomination for Just Mercy. So again, he's been hanging around the conversation a lot more than you realize. All right, well, 3 stars for me, 3 stars for Zach, 3.5 stars for Todd. It's thrice approved. It's on Amazon Prime. The Burial, or The Burial, as Zach would say. Watch The Burial. It's on Prime. It's worth the watch. Trust me.
Yeah, it was a surprise. Honestly, I didn't know anything about it going in. So, I mean, the fact that we're thrice approved is kind of a shock to me. But I mean, after watching the movie, I can see it because it's really likable.
It's way better than Pete Conrad and Backdraft.
And Backdraft.
Yeah, of course.
And A Million Miles Away.